Welcome to Marvel Dice Throne Missions, a brand new cooperative experience that you can play solo or with a team of up to 4 players. To play, you must have knowledge of standard Dice Throne gameplay. If you have not played a standard match of Dice Throne, first go back and learn the flow of the game before jumping into the co-op. Dice Throne Missions pits players against notorious Marvel villains in exciting one-shot scenarios. Each game, your goal is to clear both sides of a mission, fighting henchmen and defeating the boss without any of your team's health falling to 0. To set up and play, choose any mission from the large offering. They range in difficulty, so we recommend leveling up your player perk sheet before tackling the hardest villains. For this example, we'll start with the mission featuring Doc Ock. Set it out on side 1. Then take your pick of your favorite Dice Throne hero. Progression in missions is tied to you as a player and not the hero you choose, so you'll be able to swap out of your favorite heroes in between missions. Set up your Dice Throne heroes like normal, and set your starting health based on the number of heroes on your team. For this example, we'll have 2 heroes, so we'll set it to 30. Start with 2 CP, draw 4 cards, and hand every hero these new missions components. A momentum dial set to 0. This is a new resource, much like CP, that can be gained and spent on new abilities, allies. We'll touch on this more later. A level 1 momentum card, turn phase card, and a player perk sheet. Determine the starting player by having every hero roll a die. The highest roller will start with the first player token. Take out and shuffle the ally deck, and deal 3 face up in a row. These allies from across the Marvel Universe will bring you new abilities, kickers, and exhaust effects. Next to each henchman's name will be their starting health. Place the correct number of health tokens on their spaces around the map. There will also be an unstoppable threat that does not have any health tokens. This enemy type cannot be defeated, but is present as a consistent map hazard to watch out for. In missions, your enemies will share 1 pool of dice. At its default, the enemies will roll 2 red dice and 1 black die. Then, add an additional black die for every hero on your team. Randomize and place face-up boost tokens on every boost symbol you see on the map. These are powerful effects that your heroes can claim throughout your run. Take the Crisis Clock token and set it at noon on the Crisis Clock. Roll 1 die and advance its hand that many spaces. This will be the clock's starting position. Place your heroes near the entrance of the map and read any specific scenario instructions. You are now ready for Marvel Dice Throne missions. Missions feature simultaneous play, so all players will make their movements as a team and roll their attacks at the same time. Let's play a full round together. Players simultaneously move their heroes any number of spaces that there's a clear path, but cannot travel through henchmen or obstacles. When a henchman is defeated, its space will be replaced by a defeat tile that can be landed on or moved through, giving you access to the rest of the map. Both players move their heroes and immediately gain the effects of the boost that they land on. Their goal is to defeat this first line of henchmen. This is where combat will begin. Combat targeting is distinguished by 3 terms: melee, range, and multi-strike. Melee means you can target 1 adjacent opponent. Range means you can target any opponent. By default, every hero is set to melee, meaning you must be adjacent to attack or defend. Anytime you want to attack or defend against a non-adjacent enemy, you must spend momentum to gain range temporarily. Henchmen, however, will have multi-strike paired with melee or paired with range. Whereas heroes can only target 1 opponent, henchmen with multi-strike can target multiple opponents if able. With both heroes in melee range, if this Crabot's ability activates, it will fire off at both heroes simultaneously. If the laser were to fire off with multi-strike range, it simply means every hero across the map would be targeted. Now that our heroes are in position, every player simultaneously plays out their Dice Throne turns, going through all phases and rolling their attacks simultaneously, up until the moment that you are ready to perform an ability. You can of course use cards to cooperatively help your teammates achieve their roles. When you're finished rolling, verbally declare to your team that you're ready to attack. When all players are ready, starting with the hero with the first player token, resolve those attacks. Remove health tokens from the henchmen you target. Notice henchmen do not have a defense roll. The next hero then resolves their ability, dealing damage to the henchmen that they target. Use boost to defeat your foes quickly. When defeating a henchman, place a defeat tile in their place, clearing that space and rewarding 2 momentum to be distributed by the starting player. After all hero attacks have been resolved, simultaneously close out your hero turns with your second main phase and discard phase, before passing the turn to the henchman. Henchmen will start their turn with an upkeep phase in case of any status effects, but do not draw cards or have any CP. They will then roll that one pool of enemy dice once. The result of this one roll will be applied to all henchmen across the board. From this roll, all crab bots will activate their ability. But from the same roll, the thief bots are missing one symbol and will not activate this turn. A 6 was rolled, so the laser will fire. Now, even though 2 6s were rolled, it will only fire once because 1 6 is all it needed to activate. Players can of course use their cards to manipulate this roll and make it even harder for the henchmen to attack. Now, because enemies only roll once in Dice Throne missions, you are never allowed to reduce their roll attempt to 0. On top of this, there are a few status effects that are no longer useful against henchmen because they involve roll attempts or CP. So in missions, anytime you are to inflict a status effect on a henchman, you can instead choose to gain momentum. Going back to the original henchman roll, it activates every remaining crabbot on the map, saying they'll do multi-strike melee for 4 damage. Resolve them one at a time. This one here deals 4 damage to both heroes. Because they're in melee range, both heroes simultaneously roll their defense in response. Resolve all offensive and defensive damage from that encounter, before moving to the next crabbot and activating its attack. Being melee with no one nearby, it does not affect our heroes. The laser, however, does fire, dealing 2 undefendable damage across the map. Now that both heroes and henchmen have attacked and all damage is resolved, the round closes with the crisis clock. Advance its hand 1 space per player and activate what it passes and lands on. The icon we passed was connected to the thief bot, activating its crisis ability, saying that each thief bot gains a shield token. Place 1 on each thief bot around the map. The longer we take to defeat them, the stronger they become. With the round complete, start again, this time by passing the first player token and following the same turn order from before, moving your heroes and gaining the effects of the boost that you land on. Go from round to round, gaining momentum and boosts while defeating henchmen together, all while making sure no teammate's health falls to 0. Complete the main objectives or go for the perfect reward by defeating everything and distribute that extra health and momentum to your team, allowing you to acquire powerful allies. Some will have a recruit ability that gives you boosts just for acquiring them. Then make sure to replace that ally with a new one. With side 1 complete, don't reset anything about your hero board or cards. There's still a villain to stop. Flip to side 2 and let's set up the boss fight. Reset the crisis clock to noon and roll a die to give it its starting position. Take out the boss health dial and give them their starting health depending on the amount of players. Set out more random boost tokens and you're all set up for the boss fight. Drop into action and claim the boost that you land on and begin that same turn order from before. Now's the time to hit him with your strongest attacks. Simultaneously take your Dice Throne turns and lock in those offensive abilities. This time your attacks will hit against the boss's unique defense. In turn order, resolve those attacks just like on side 1. Drop the boss's health to 0 and you win. Close out your turn with your second main phase and discard phase before passing it to the boss. When they attack, they will only perform the strongest ability they're able to. When you roll the boss's dice once, see if he can activate the strongest ability on the left. If he cannot, simply move the roll result to the second strongest ability until it activates one or misses. This time, Laser Strike will activate. Now take note of the red dice. The numbers on the red dice in boss battles represent which zones will receive a critical hit. Spaces 2 and 3 will receive a random face-down boost token. If your hero is in that space, not only will the boss hit you with its main attack, but you will also receive a crit effect on top. Heroes will respond to that attack with a defense roll. And then the round will close with the crisis clock moving 1 space per player. This time activating many crisis abilities that the boss has, such as gaining shields or recovering health. And that is a full round of boss combat. Simply pass the first player marker and go again. The crit spaces will stay persistent unless a player decides to gamble and start their turn on that space. If they do, they'll pull all the tokens from that space, claim the face-up tokens, and set the face-down tokens on their health dial. The next time a boss hits any attack, they will receive a crit effect. Survive it, and they'll gain the boost underneath. Go from round to round, following that same turn order, keeping your team alive and bringing the boss's health to 0 to claim victory. Completing a mission will reward you with perk points that you can use to fill in the spaces on your perk sheet. You can place your perk points in the difficulty column that you just completed or lower. Fill out all the spaces in a section and you'll start the next game with those hard-earned effects. Every mission will bring about new challenges, obstacles, and puzzles to overcome. So pick your hero, rally your team, and roll your dice. Good luck with Marvel Dice Throne missions.